Well, hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Last week I suggested that my friend Greg and I would, on the 19th of August, which was in fact yesterday here in Adelaide, celebrate World Photography Day, or what's become known as World Photography Day, by doing another video on that, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to do, but we were going to do it. Anyway, we planned to do something today, but when we both got up this morning, sometimes you get up on the wrong side of the bed, and we both weren't feeling all that great. So Greg and I had our sometimes Friday Subway for lunch, had a bit of a chat, and we decided that we weren't actually up to doing the type of video that we were planning to do to celebrate World Photography Day. Because we thought about things and both of us were feeling a bit out of sorts. Greg's got a lot of health issues that he's been dealing with for many years, and I've got this current situation of trying to deal with recovering from the total hip replacement. However, we looked at today's newspapers and what's going on in the world, and we thought, because we were going to make a fun video, and I had in mind to do something along the lines of what Peter Cook and Dudley Moore used to do in their monologues, but I thought, no, I couldn't actually do that today. I'm not up to that today, and Greg wasn't either. So that'll have to wait for when we're in the mood to do that, and that will be a real hash up like they usually are when we try and do things. However, I thought I would talk a little bit about the birth of photography, but then I wanted to go on to a more serious note on the whole science, art, hobby, whatever you like, about what photography is, and share some of my thoughts with you on that. So I've got a nice book here. I had a whole stack of books picked out that we were going to actually quote from as well on photography. I've got them all piled up over there, but we're not going to use them today. But this one here is DK Eyewitness Guides, Photography. Discover the remarkable world of photography from the pinhole camera to the digital era. Someone gave me this as a birthday present a while back, or for Christmas, and it's really good. And it's got a lot of interesting information in it. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the birth of photography. In early 19th century France, a race was on to discover a way of permanently recording images cast by a camera obscura. That was an early form of camera. Two men led the contest, Joseph Niepce and Louis Daguerre. Niepce was the first to, that's spelt Niepce, and Daguerre is spelt Daguerre. Niepce was the first to produce a lasting photographic image, but it was Daguerre who invented the process that introduced photography to the masses. In 1839, at the French Academy of Science in Paris, he made a grand public announcement of his daguerreotype process. It triggered an explosion of popular interest. Suddenly everyone wanted to be daguerreotyped. News studios opened all over Paris. The craze for having portraits taken, known as daguerreotypomania, quickly spread through France, across Europe and to the United States. So those two guys are credited with being the ones that got things off the ground, and why people are celebrating. I don't know where they get the 19th of August from, but people celebrate those two guys, I think, because of what they did for World Photography Day. But at the same time, while they were at work in France, an English inventor named Henry Fox Talbot was also conducting experiments. His research would result in the invention of the photographic negative, unlike the daguerreotype, which was a one-off image and could not therefore be reproduced. Fox Talbot's color-type negatives could be used to make a number of positive prints, and although revolutionary, his process had drawbacks. Exposure times were long, the method was long-winded, and the prints were sometimes uneven or faded. A few years later, Frederick Scott Archer's collodion of wet plate process replaced it and became the predominant form of photography between the 1850s and the 1870s. Well, if you were to get this book, you can read on and on about how it's all developed down through the years, using the wet plate process, glass negatives, celluloid negatives, and Polaroid cameras, 35mm, all the large format cameras and everything, and now to the digital age, of course, which we can take photos with our phones. So there you are, a little bit about why we have World Photography Day, It's been just an explosion of photographs and people taking photographs and using photographs ever since. One of the things that is the main theme, the main reason why I do my blogs and I do my YouTube channels is because as a Christian, I like to think that when I'm using my camera, I'm using it on very many different levels. And one of the levels is wanting to use my camera to glorify God and his creation. That's one of the reasons I do it. And when you think of all the things that people do around the world, many of us are using our camera for God, or if you don't like the idea of God, they use their camera for good. And so that's what I'd like to sort of focus on a little bit. Some time back when I wrote an article on my blog, and I'll refer back to it, about the Synoptic Gospels, and basically I wrote an article called "The Photography of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John," because you see the early people who recorded things, going back to the scribes in Old Testament times and whatever, many people recorded things. They didn't have a camera. They had to write things down, and so that's what they did. They did observations, and when you look at the Gospels, the story of Jesus in the New Testament, some people say that those things are contradictory. But I would give you the idea, or plant the idea in your mind, that they are not contradictory. Because some years back we were in our young marriage group from church. We all still meet together, but we were in our 20s back then, but now we're in our 70s. We still meet once a month or once every couple of months. But one night we had a slide night. We used to have slide nights. And one night we were looking at some slides with people who brought along some of their own slides. And we realised that some of the photographs taken on these slides were all taken at the same events, but by different photographers. And it was really interesting to see what we captured at the same event, but from a different perspective through our eyes, not through someone else's eyes, but through our eyes and our camera, what we thought was important, what we thought wasn't. And some of them were the same event, but just taken from a different angle and different ways. So looking at all the different photos that we took from our different perspectives in our old young marriage group, you come to the realisation that everyone sees things in different ways, and they have different perspectives, and they place more importance on some things than others. And that's exactly how things were recorded in the Gospels. But the overall picture you get is pretty accurate. But people were, as individuals, recording it how they saw it. Just think how fantastic it would have been if they had actual cameras back in those days, video cameras, to record what was going on when Jesus was on this earth. Would have been amazing. And then people would probably still argue just as much about whether this was edited or that was changed or this wasn't true and all that sort of stuff. So you'd probably still have all the same issues, but it would have been amazing anyway, just the same. So I guess what I'm getting at is that photography is an amazing thing. When you think about how it works and why it works, and these people that explored it and they introduced photography to us, it's an amazing thing, because I understand some of the laws that all these people before us have discovered, and I understand how I can use some of those laws of photography to create nice photography. But I don't really know why those laws are there. What powers them? Why are they there? How do they come into being? Do they just happen by chance? I don't think so. I think God is behind all of those laws of photography. And he gave us these gifts, gave us our eyes, gave us the photography processes so that we could enjoy life, record things, could glorify his kingdom, could marvel at creation, which would then draw us closer to him. Because, you know, I'll be quite frank, I'm no evolutionist. I used to be once before I became a Christian, and even after I became a Christian. But I'll be frank that when I look at this world today and I look at the marvellous intricacies of the whole creation, which I like to capture on my camera, I think to myself, how could anyone think that this all just happened by chance? Why are we just here by chance? How are we living and breathing and growing? And then when I have an operation and realise that what surgeons can do these days through modern science, and science is all from God as well, in my opinion, and how the body has inbuilt into it the ability to heal itself. Excuse me. I can feel the aches and pains coming good day by day from all the trauma that my hip suffered a couple of weeks ago, and I'm getting better and stronger each day. There does come a time, of course, as our bodies decay, when the healing agent side of it doesn't work anymore. And that's another thing to marvel about as well. How come we've only got a certain amount of time that we can live on this earth? Why can't we live forever like they seemingly did in the Old Testament times? Well, that's another whole area of debate, isn't it? But I like to use my camera, and I like to suggest to other people to use their camera to not only capture God's creation, to marvel at what's there, to not only create happy memories for families and record our lives as we grow up, but also there's a whole other side of it too. We're recording things for history. And also think of all the journalists, the photojournalists and the writing type journalists overseas and elsewhere, who are trying to show the world what's going on in other parts of the world to bring about change. Do you know that there are photographers every year around the world that are killed because of what they're doing? Journalists, photographic journalists, and I looked up the statistics. If you just put in on the internet, Google it, how many photographers died this year, last year and whatever around the world, you'll be surprised. It's in around about 60 to 80 or 90 every year that are dying because of what they're trying to do. They're trying to expose injustice, they're trying to bring about change. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we can do with our cameras at those sort of alarm type levels, and even at a more benign type level as well with our cameras. We can go about, do things with our cameras to bring about good and to make people feel better. I always remember one of my most exciting photo shoots. I don't know whether I've talked about this before. My wife is a nurse. She still works as a nurse in a doctor's surgery. And she goes above and beyond with her care. That looks a bit stupid, doesn't it, sitting up like that? She goes above and beyond in her care of her patients. And one day I was home in between jobs, I think, and some years back, and there's this dear lady came in. She was in much distress because her cat had died, or she was taking her cat to the vet, I think, and she was having the cat put down, and she was in much distress. So Leslie, my wife, offered to go with her to the vet, to take the cat with her so the cat could be put down, and hold this dear old lady's hand while the cat passed away. And she said to my wife, she said, I don't even have a photograph of this cat, and how will I remember him? And she was very sad. So Leslie rang me up and she said, can you come down to the vet's at the moment and bring a camera, because I want to take a photo of this lady's cat. Now when I got there, the cat was already dead, but it was sitting in the box that she took it in. It didn't look like it was dead. The only camera I could find that had any film in it was a Polaroid camera. In fact, I've got it here somewhere, I think. And so I took a Polaroid photo with it and gave it to this lady. And she was overjoyed because now she had a photograph of her cat. That's what I mean about using our camera to do good deeds, to bring joy to people and to expose injustice, to do all sorts of things. In effect, using your camera for God. Showing people the marvels of God's creation. Creating stories of people who have come through all sorts of trials. There are so many wonderful documentaries you see about people who've come through all sorts of horrible things because someone's taken the trouble to document them and put them on film and put them on video or whatever. And we have all this wonderful technology that we can do that today. So I just thought I'd just share some of those things because it's World Photography Day, or it was yesterday. And I'm going to put some links underneath this for some people. I decided to look up using your camera for God as just a little search thing in the search engine on Google, and come up with some interesting people with some interesting perspectives on some of the things I'm talking about. So I'll put some links in there for you to have a look at some of those as well. So once again, thanks for watching. I hope you did have a great World Photography Day, and keep on shooting. And next time when Greg and I get together, maybe we'll do a little bit more light-hearted stuff. We enjoy doing that. but sometimes you just don't feel like doing comedy, do you? And that was one of those days today. So anyway, like if you like, subscribe if you wish, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.